As you all know all too well, the medical industry is constantly changing. It takes constant innovation to stay on top of it. That's why MTD is committed to solving complex problems to help our partners bring higher quality medical device components to market before their competitors. We've been doing it since 1972 and have become a recognized leader in our field. But to us, leadership means more responsibility. It inspires us to drive ourselves even harder to design and produce more effective solutions for our partners. How do we do that? It's fairly simple. Our focus is 100% on micro, 100% focus on medical, 100% in-house micro tooling, and 100% of all micro molding occurs in our certified Class A clean rooms. We are privately held and driven by the desire to be the first and be the best, and allowing our customers to do the same with their products. We are continuously investing in new technology, where 10% of our annual revenue goes towards internal science projects, where we acquire new skills, techniques, and knowledge to stay ahead of the curve. As a note, MTD now has 2 new molding cells, a graphite and metal machining center, and a CMM for our tooling division on order. From a quality standpoint, we are ISO 9001-2008 certified and will be 13485 registered in July of this year. MTD was also named 2015 Processor of the Year finalist based on factors like financial performance, quality, customer relations, and technological innovation. The first order of business is to qualify what a micromolded component is, and MTD does this simply by asking a few questions to our clients. Number 1, does your part fit in a 1 inch by 1 inch square? Number 2, does your design require one or more of these following features, such as, do you have wall stocks in the range of 2,000s to 4,000s? Does it require edge and corner radii less than 1,000? Or do you have aspect ratios in the range of 250 to 1? Or perhaps a small hole in the range of 2,000ths as well? Or is your part weight so low that you can measure or make 520 parts from a single pellet of plastic? All of these features can be accomplished and are generally recognized by the industry as being micro and requiring specialized tools. Something to remember is that a part does not need to be microscopic to be considered a micro part. This has been proven to be one of the greatest myths of our industry today. In many instances, micro features on a part you can see with the naked eye require more specialized tools and techniques than what's required to create a microscopic part with simple geometry. Some of the most difficult parts to manufacture are larger parts with micro features. Since micromolding is the core of MTD's business, we have had to develop a complete new set of tools for us to be successful over the past 43 years. These are what we refer to as our 6 sciences, which provide our clients with a roadmap for success. There is a proven track record that when these steps are embraced, our clients tend to yield better long-term results, both with part functionality and speed to market. Each of these sciences can be a discussion all unto themselves. However, with time not being on our side today, let's cover each one at a 40,000-foot level. Micromaterial science is where everything begins. In micromolding, subjects materials to unusually high shear forces while relying on close tolerance temperature monitoring. Thorough knowledge of the material, whether it be polypropylene, PEEK, or a resorbable material, is absolutely essential to success. Next is using material selection as a qualifier for what micropart design is feasible for you. Understanding and knowing what can be tooled up versus what can be manufactured in production volume is the key to being successful. In a simple word, it's reproducibility. Micro tooling capabilities is something we hold very near to MTD, and we design, build, and maintain 100% of all tools in-house. Our clients approach MTD when they are seeking high-resolution features as devices and components are miniaturized. The mold is definitely our enabler to produce these highly unique components. Micromolding is not molding small parts with macromolding techniques and tools. The influence of material residence time in the barrel, shot weight, proximity of high masses to open areas, heating and cooling of the mold, the forces required during injection, adding inspection to the process to accept or reject immediately, and so forth, are all dramatically different from micro. Micro-sized parts do not lend themselves to touching, whether by a probe or by hand, so all measurements must be made by highly sensitive optical systems. And it's similar to metrology, handling and assembling or packaging micro-sized parts is far more challenging, and the solutions are definitely different than those employed in making macro-sized parts. Every machine at MTD has a custom end-of-arm tool made just for your part. There is not a single part at MTD that is simply ejected into a bin and allow it to free fall. So as you can see, micro and macro require a different set of skills in order to be successful. As I stated earlier, it all starts with the material, and one of the most common questions we always field is, what materials are suitable for micromolding? And the simple answer is that all thermoplastic materials are suitable for micromolding. But what the determining factor is that generally comes up is what your geometry will drive, what material is suitable for your design. Essentially, what makes MTD special is our in-depth experience with all of these materials, both thermoplastic and bioabsorbable. The reason we are so well versed in the given material's edge of success and failure is that we have designed unique characterization techniques to evaluate the materials under the micromolding process. We want to encourage our clients to engage MTD as early as possible to avoid any of those false positives or false negatives. The first step in the process is always focusing on the material and establishing what is required for material preparation pre-molding. Process development starts long before a customer's tool is ready and even before it starts being manufactured. A lot of bioabsorbable materials, exotic materials, and custom blends come to the door with minimal or no data, so we need to discover this for ourselves with testing. Once we establish where we believe we should be with the process conditions, we use our in-house 3 micro technology tools. The first one is microfill, and this utilizes a spiral mold at selected temperatures, so we can run several injection velocities and record peak pressure, transfer pressure, and flow length. From that, we can determine how shear sensitive the material is. Depending on the part geometry, it will also let us know what kind of speed we can expect to use to be successful in filling unique geometries. The second is our microflow. Using a thickness FLAC that ranges from 2,000s to 9,000s, we can see the effect of reduced wall section on flow length. Running through multiple injection velocities while measuring flow length, we determine what wall thicknesses are realistic for a certain material. In the event we discover we cannot fill a given thickness, we can always adjust machine parameters. Just like any adjustments, there are limitations though. Lastly, our micro runner studies. This is a tool that has a ratcheting runner system that varies in diameter and aids in determining the minimum runner size required to fill the volume of your part. This is to help us size a runner system to adequately mold a product without sacrificing material. This is extremely important for expensive materials that may be in the range of $3,000 up to $10,000 per kilogram. For instance, one of the most expensive materials we mold at MTD to date is approximately $1 million per kilogram. These technologies, coupled with extreme material conditioning control, allow us to use conventional runner systems to produce upwards of 10,000 shots per pound of material. So when we hear of other vendors struggling with consistency, it is clear that the importance of controlling said factors was not likely understood nor practiced. MTD is globally known as a leader and premier tooling shop for micromolds. As stated earlier, it is our ability to create high-resolution features as medical devices get smaller and smaller. When MTD receives a design, it is our responsibility to use every tool in our toolbox to design a mold and come up with a solution that provides a client that perfect match to their model. At MTD, our workpiece accuracy target is 42 millionths. What I mean by workpiece accuracy, though, is that what the actual part comes out of the machine looking like and not what the actual machine is specified to do. This is what separates MTD from other shops. We may both have the same plan going in, but MTD has exact execution. It is always nice when we see drawings that have tip radii less than a thou, because if that is truly what the client needs, MTD is the only person in the world who can do this because of our Sarix 3D EDM young technology. This is a very unique piece of equipment that creates cavity geometry by following a tool path similar to CNC milling. But the major difference is that the end mill is actually an electrode that can be as small as 5 microns. So simply just imagine the crispness of the geometry in the cavity. Furthering the discussion, one of the more common misnomers in micromolding is when our clients ask us to produce a rapid prototype of what the industry would coin as a soft tool. Soft tooling is not suitable in micro for a few different reasons, one being that all cavity geometry at MTD is done via EDM, which in essence does not really care if the substrate is hardened steel or soft aluminum. And most importantly, aluminum does not hold up to the pressures that the mold will experience during the micromolding process, which could be in excess of 50,000 psi or greater of injection pressure. Once the mold is complete, it is very important to perform installation qualification on one of MTD's technologically advanced micromolding cells. Because MTD warranties most of its tooling for 1 million cycles, it is our responsibility to ensure it is functioning properly when mounted in the press. Our machines utilize screw-over plunger designs, which is different than a conventional molding machine, in which the screw does 4 basic functions: melt, feed, convey, and inject the polymer. But in MTD's case, the screw only melts, feeds, and conveys the polymer into the plunger cavity. This has several advantages, but the most basic are controlling residence time at high heat and not shearing all of the material in the barrel for every single shot, as it would commonly do in conventional molding. Investing in top-of-the-line equipment makes the job easier and more efficient for our process engineering team to develop the widest process window possible. Dependable and accurate equipment is essential when working with such small numbers. As a matter of fact, our machines have plunger resolution of 0.03 millimeters. This means that 25% of the diameter of a human hair-on position is the difference between a full shot, short shot, or a flat shot. By implementing inline inspection systems, we are able to verify the absence or presence of details down to 1/10,000. This allows our clients the peace of mind that every part is 100% inspected and correct. Another line of defense that we employ is RJG EDART that speeds the visual inspection process up and can tighten the window on how a cavity is packed, sort from good and bad as well, and predict dimensions. We have developed a software for microcomponents to where it can actually predict what a dimension will be by assessing how cavity pressures impact particular dimensions. Although each micromanufacturing cell is considered autonomous, MTD must also depend on proper quality assurance techniques, which come in the form of micrometrology and testing. MTD's product realization methodology resembles what you would normally find in the medical industry, following a standard IQ, OQ, PQ, but because of the typical part size and type tolerances, we have adapted our processes and tools to focus on perfecting the measurement system early on in your project. Custom fixturing and non-contact OGP measurement programs are created and validated in-house for each part. Anyone can measure a part with a rubber ruler, and I assure you MTD sees this all too often. We always prove out our measurement system for all critical dimensions with a passing gauge R&R, so there is high confidence that the data we provide to the customer is valid and captured with accuracy. One statement of clarification and caution is that a gauge R&R does not tell you that the part is within specification. What it does tell you, however, is that your measurement system can accurately and consistently measure your part. Now that we know the 6 sciences, discussed some of these in more detail, and created boundaries for what a micromolded part fits into, we can now talk about what this geometry has allowed our clients to further their designs beyond their imagination. As you may readily see, that which is possible is fairly exceptional. And MTD's offerings of wall thicknesses down to 2/1000, aspect ratios of 250 to 1, employing zero draft designs, and tip radii at 5 microns have changed the game for markets like endoscopy, drug delivery, and laparoscopy. MTD can now insert tiny metal marker bands, overmold to delicate electronics, or simply join 2 precision components that otherwise would have been assembled from high-risk manual fashions. Medical device companies are requiring higher tolerance components for more point-specific therapies and treatments. This is found in some products for radiation-directing brachytherapy, as well as point-of-care drug delivery. The growth and market acceptance of bioabsorbable polymers throughout the body have leveraged MTD's unique set of skills for their current and next-generation devices. So now, let's go to 3 case studies where the pitfalls we have noted in prior slides were highlighted by our client and how challenges were overcome by the emergence of MTD's micromolding technology. This slide up here is a comparison of a 3D printed prototype to a mold built by MTD. For some very low quantity applications, such as personalized medical implants, 3D printing has reportedly been used as a limited run production technology. It is natural that the successes experienced by those using the method in the macro world would inspire similar experimentation in the micro world as well. So the dilemma for most development engineers is in determining whether the short delivery time and low-cost sample of a 3D printed part outweigh the disadvantages of potential loss of critical micro feature definition, reduced material choices, and possibly the loss of the ability to functionally test. To clarify the dilemma in terms of the loss of feature definition, a quick visual comparison of the two parts shown in the bottom left illustrates this. The answer to whether 3D printing will be sufficient or whether a part must be hard-tooled might become clear once the need for micro-sized features is determined. Are they desirable or are they critical to function? The same is true for the number of parts required. Is the need limited to a handful of parts, or will thousands of parts be needed? The physical, mechanical, electrical properties of the material is also a concern. This component, being a ligation clip, has a dynamic hinge that must open and close without failure, while the teeth, or stairs as we call them, are a design feature to mitigate the migration of the clip off of the vessel. On both accounts, 3D printing was not favorable because it could not be made in the actual material, and the resolution of the teeth exhibited poor tissue performance. This being said, however, MTD does strongly believe that developments in 3D printing that are occurring at a rapid pace will eventually nurture the design and development of microprototypes. The next case study began with our client's desire to create a bioabsorbable part. The way they approached the challenge was sensible. Before they invested in molding a biomaterial, they wanted to find a reasonable thermoplastic surrogate material that could tell them whether or not they could have a likelihood for success with a bioabsorbable. The surrogate material was identified as polycarbonate, and when they built the mold and tried to run product, the initial molder could not fill the part properly. The next step for the molder was trying a host of other polymers. Perhaps polycarbonate was not the best material choice. The results proved that the molder could not fill the part in any material. The closest they got was using a high-flow acrylic, which is pictured in the top black and white photo. The OEM eventually came to MTD, and after we analyzed the tacks from the other vendor, it was clear that the first vendor approached the mold construction very similar to a macro part. This resulted in excessive gas traps throughout the entire perimeter of the tack. With MTD's microfill technology, as we explained earlier, and the understanding of the material during the micro process, we knew we had to approach the mold from a micro perspective and obviously build it differently. Weeks later, approximately 4 weeks, our first shots looked exactly like the drawing you see there. Fast forward to today, where we are in full production mode, producing over 170,000 parts per week, and we have been able to pass down a cost savings of 38% to the customer over 4 years. The path we encourage our clients to take when they are starting a challenging R&D project is to always start at proof of concept and scale the program using the following steps. Step 1, prove the design is viable. Step 2, create a prototype mold that can sustain early production. Step 3, maximize cavitation based on what you learn from that prototype tool. And step 4, build production cavities at maximum cavitation to reduce costs, and then possibly multiple molds to achieve your volume requirements. This next case study looks into one of the most rapidly growing fields that MTD is exposed to today, and that is personal delivery of pharmaceuticals. An injectable drug delivery systems company was struggling with the traditional manufacturing methods for its device. The process included a series of high-risk, cumbersome steps to manually assemble 4 micro-components. Cost concerns were a factor, as these steps required having an entire room of people assembling components at one time. MTD was approached by the client to build a single cavity mold that proved our technology could be used here. After a few months of mold flow analysis and collaboration, the successful micromolding of this device eliminated the risky assembly and provided our client a long-term cost-down model that was scaling to nearly 50 million units per year. Traditional manufacturing methods for the development of cannulas have used the heat-forming process of converting tubing. Next generation products will likely follow the new advances that MTD's tooling expertise has allowed. If you were to look at the micro tooling and molding industry today, MTD is the only company who is producing components with these nearly impossible geometries. As we close out here, I'd like to cover what makes MTD so special, and if you can really remember just a few points from this discussion, I would hope that these are the ones that you would remember. We are always asked the simple question, who is your competition? The response that most companies would give is, we don't have any competition. The following list is a list of why this is particularly true for MTD's case. Number one, there is no other molder in the world that focuses solely on micromolding. It is always a subdivision of their larger macromolding company. Next, we are the only micromolder that we know of in the entire world that focuses solely on the medical device marketplace. Others may use automotive, electronics, and other consumer products to fill in the void. Thirdly, from a tooling perspective, to our knowledge today, we are the most experienced molder who utilizes Saric's 3D EDM milling technology to create cavity detail. And then if we look at a few of our guiding stars, and what I mean by this is that these following three metrics guide us year over year and reset them, and we measure them every year. 90% of our projects are completed on time. Simply stated, you get parts in hand when they are promised to you. And now the next two speak for themselves. 20% of our successes have been failures by others, and 30% of our successes have actually been no-quoted by the industry. This means your project may have circled every potential micromolder in the world, and MTD is the only vendor that saw your design and believed it could be done. Combining these last two statistics, 50% of our business every year is working on a project that is nearly improbable.